Today's head-on is a love of dogs. John Dyer's strange power over the canine race. The subhead-on says, savage bulls and stupid curs made tractable and kind. The only man who ever pawned a Newfoundland in Chicago. This article originally came from the Chicago Times. It says, every man they say is crazy on some point, remarked John Dyer as he fixed the balls on one of the Tremont House pool tables. And I confess that my madness runs in the direction of dogs. They're my fad. I love them. I can't help it. I can't bear to see one of them sick or ill-used. I'll take a mangy cur from the streets and treat him for his trouble, and I'll cure and care for any dog that's brought to me. I like, too, to break dogs of vicious habits. I'm never happier than when I'm transforming a savage dog into a docile one. I've handled dogs ever since I was 6 years old, and when I was 9 years of age and lived in Cincinnati, I had the greatest poodle in the state of Ohio. He was a fluffy white dog, 9 years old, and I taught him to do every trick a dog is capable of. He was a character on the streets. Everyone knew him, and every time he appeared, a crowd would collect, expecting to see some of his accomplishments. He lived with me till he was 21 years of age, when I gave him to my uncle, which took him to Europe, but as my uncle died on shipboard, I never knew what became of the poodle. Another of my possessions, which lived to a remarkable age for a dog, was a King Charles Spaniel, who died on his 27th birthday. What breed of dogs is trained the easiest? The mongrel dog, the common cur of the streets, will learn a great deal faster than any other kind. How do you account for that? Because they're thoroughly broken and will obey your orders immediately. Your hybrid dog is obstinate and wants to have his own way. It's true that when he's learned a trick, he remembers it longer than the mongrel will, but the latter is much easier to teach. I like to teach dogs. They're so intelligent. I can guarantee to make the most stupid or the most savage dog docile in one lesson. I've known men who brought savage bloodhounds, bulls, and mastiffs to me, and in 5 minutes, I would make the animals give me the paw I asked for, beg on their hind legs, and they would be licking me lovingly before the lesson was done. I don't pretend to account for my power over dogs, for it's not in the method. I have no particular way of treating them. I love the whole canine race, and I suppose they intuitively recognize the fact, and that gives me my influence with them. Have you ever been bitten? Oh yes, plenty of times, but never by a dog I was taking in hand for the first time. Once I tried to separate two bulldogs that were fighting, and one of them, in his rage, put his teeth into my thigh. But as soon as he found the difference, he bit out a mouthful and went at the other dog again. Bulls are great watchdogs, although no more so than some Newfoundlands I've known. I sent a red bulldog on approval out to Bennett, Nebraska to a banker. I didn't hear of him for some time, but at last I received a check for $150 together with a note saying, "The dog is not satisfactory, but here's your check." They had put the dog inside of the bank to watch the vaults at night. The night watchman, whose duty it was to stay on the outside of the building, tried to go in, and the dog killed him. He was the strangest looking dog you ever set eyes on, and whenever we went upon the street, we were surrounded by people, and I was continually telling what breed he was. He didn't look like a dog at all, but more like a tiger or a lion. I had one greyhound who made the greatest quarter-mile record in the country. She ran it in 23 1/4 seconds. At one time, I had 33 dogs of all breeds, but I only have 4 at the present time. At that time, I was dealing with them extensively and was in correspondence with dog owners and dog fanciers all over the world. I've imported for myself and others at various times some of the most valuable dogs of their kind in the world. Some of the bulls I've owned have come from whole generations of fighters, dogs upon whom hundreds of thousands of dollars have changed hands. I've just given away a remarkable dog, a species of Newfoundland called a St. John's. He was pretty nearly the only one of the kind in this country. The breed is quite rare. They are very intelligent and have a smooth coat of clear black hair. They are very highly prized by fanciers for their beauty. Just now, I have a fox terrier, Champion Stinge, who is 15 years old, and which I will match against any dog of the same age for from $500 to $1,000. I have too a bulldog which I value at $120, and an English Mastiff from Fred Grant's Boston Kennel, and which is worth every cent of $175, and my star dog, the Great Dane, which costs $400 to import. It is a Danish boarhound, with a pedigree reaching back through 25 generations, away into the 17th century. Valentine Blatz, the brewer, imported him, and I got him from a second donor. He is beyond doubt the most valuable dog of his kind in this country. In fact, there are but few dogs of this sort of pure breed in this country. I presume, continued Mr. Dyer, that I'm the only man in Chicago, or in this country for that matter, who ever pawned a dog. It was this wise. I was dreadfully hard up about 10 years ago, and I conceived the idea that there was no need of my lacking money when I had several valuable dogs in my possession. I did not care to sell any of them, so I determined to borrow some money on them. I selected my trained Newfoundland Carlo and started out. I knew that there was no use taking him to a private individual, so I bethought me of a pawnbroker named Connolly on the west side, an intelligent man, and one who was in the habit of loaning money upon things not generally pledged. I took him the dog and said, Connolly, I want to leave this dog here as a pledge for $25, which I need very much. 25 nothing, said Connolly, you're crazy. Not nearly so much as you'll be if you refuse, I rejoined. Here, Carlo, how many men are there here? There were 2 clerks, Connolly and myself. Carlo ran from one to the other and then barked 4 times. Connolly opened his eyes. Now, said I to a clerk, step outside the door. He did so. How many now, Carlo? I asked. The dog barked 3 times. Connolly's eyes began to bulge out with wonder. I threw down one of the tiny 3-cent silver pieces of the day. Carlo picked it up in a second. Show the gentleman how you hold it, Carlo. The dog raised his head and showed the thin, wafer-like coin held on the opposite edges by the teeth alone, the tongue not having been used in picking up or retaining the coin. Dang my eyes, exclaimed Connolly. It's hard to believe. I got him to pile on the floor one upon another, a $50, a quarter, a dime, a nickel, a 2-cent piece, and a penny. I told Connolly to ask for any coin in the pile. He asked Carlo for the quarter. In 3 seconds, Carlo had pushed over the pile with his tongue and was holding the 25-cent piece between his teeth. This beats the Dutch, says Connolly. Have you any chickens? I asked him. I have, he says, 42 of them. I'm going to have one for my dinner. Come on, says I, and Carlo will get it for you. And we went to the backyard, and there were all the chickens cackling and clucking. Which one will you have? I says. That speckled one over against the fence, says he, and the words were hardly out of his mouth when Carlo rushed through the brood, scattering the hens in every direction. He made straight for the speckled one, and in a few minutes drove her right into Connolly's arms. Come in, he says, and get your money. I left Carlo with him and came away with my $25. When I redeemed him, Connolly offered me $100 for him, but I wouldn't take it. Twice afterward, I pawned him for the same sum with Connolly, and twice again redeemed him, each time refusing an offer of $100 for the dog. I afterwards sold the dog to J.C. Myers, Jr., the Board of Trade man, and someone poisoned the dog. He was the smartest Newfoundland dog I ever saw, and I think that he could do everything but speak. Who owns some of the more valuable dogs in Chicago? There are several St. Bernard dogs of great price owned in this city. O.W. Ruggles has one that he values at $1,000, and Houston the Saloon Man claims to own one worth $2,500. Whitman of the Grand Trunk has a kennel of high-priced spaniels and hunting dogs, and so has Thomas the Gunman. The Jalma the Fire King has a mixed black and tan and Scotch Terrier that he offers to back against any other dog for $1,000. He can do all manner of stage and acrobatic tricks. I've seen him walk a tightrope backwards on his hind legs. A dog is worth pretty much what the owner can get for him, and these fancy prices for dogs have no fixed basis as a general thing. The value is what the owner puts it at. There are plenty of dogs in Chicago that the owners hold at fabulous sums, but which I wouldn't give half a dollar for. If a dog isn't broke, he's not worth the powder to shoot him with. This story comes from the great state of Massachusetts, being reported in the Boston Sunday Globe of April 1st, 1888. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we'll see you next time on Americana Archives.